We are going to talk about finding the equation of a line from the table of values or graph. The equation of a line, as you know, in slope Y-intercept form is given by equation y equal mx plus b, where b is the y-intercept and m is the slope. So again, the number which is multiplied by x is always the slope of the line, and the number by itself without any variable is the y-intercept. If you remember from previous lesson, y-intercept is the point that the line crosses the y-axis, and the x-coordinate of that point is always 0. Now, as you remember, the slope, which is shown with the letter m, is rise over run, and is given by the formula y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now you may be confused that what are these indices for, 2 and 1. 2 refers of second point and 1 represents the first point. I'm going to show you what exactly I mean by 2 and 1 here. And b is the y-intercept. Now if you look at this graph, you will see that the line crosses the y-axis at point 2 here, 0 and 2, so the y-intercept is 0 and 2, and the slope is rise over run. The rise is here, which is equal to 2, and the run is going to be 2. So the slope is 2 over 2 is 1. And as you can see here, the equation of the line is y equal x plus 2. The slope, which is the number multiplied by the variable x, is 1. You don't see it, but it's the default 1. And also the y-intercept is 2, as it's indicated by the point that this crosses the y-axis. Now we are going to talk about the main part of the lesson, which is to find the equation of the line from table of values, which is this one. Now, to do that one, what we are going to do is that we are going to take any 2 points, meaning any 2 rows from the table of values, call one of these rows to be point 1 and the other one point 2. Knowing which one is point 1, which one is point 2, then we know automatically what is y2, what is y1, what is x2, and what is x1. So from this equation here, we can find the slope of the line. Now, knowing the slope, then we have to find the y-intercept. Now that you have the slope, to find the y-intercept, use any point in the table of values, substitute it back in the equation y equal mx plus b. As you remember previously here, y equal mx plus b, m is known. We know that y is known because of the point that we pick, and x is known, so we can solve this equation to find b, which is y-intercept. Now we are going to do one example here. We have a table of value given by this table here, and we are supposed to find the equation of the line. So let's start doing the steps necessary. As I said, take any point as point 1. Let's say I pick this as point 1, and I take, let's say, this one as point 2. Then, looking at the table, we can see that x1 is equal to 1, y1 is equal to 10. At the same time, x2 is equal to negative 2, and y2 is equal to 4. So our m, which is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 is equal to y2 is 4 minus y1 is 10 divided by x2 is negative 2 minus 1. So this gives us 4 minus 10 is minus 6, minus 2 minus 1 is minus 3, negative 6 over negative 3 is going to give you 2. So this gives us the equation as y equal mx plus b, 2x plus b. Now to find y-intercept, you have two options. Either you are lucky and you do have the y-intercept right in the table, or you don't have it. Remember, y-intercept is a point that x is equal to 0. And if you look at the table, you can see that this entry here, x is equal to 0. So the y of this point represents y-intercept. So you can see that the y-intercept is 8. So we know that the y-intercept is 8. But usually you are not that lucky to have the point 0 and 8 in the table. So let's see what is the general steps in finding y-intercept. We know that y is equal to 2x plus b. So pick any point in the table that you want. Let's say this time I pick this point here, 2 and 12. I put it back in the equation and solve for b. So y is 12, y is 12, and x is 2. So I put 2 here, and then I solve for b. 2 times 2 is 4, plus b. Now to isolate b, I'm going to move 4 to the left, and I change the sign. So from here I get b is equal to 12 minus 4, which is 8, which is exactly the same one that we got here. So either case, we can solve for b, and this gives us the equation y is equal to 2x plus 8. Now we are going to find the equation of the line from its graph. To do this one, we are going to use the same technique as we did for table of values. This time we are going to pick 2 points from the graph. Call one of them point 1 and the other one point 2. Now, the only thing you have to make sure is that the 2 points that you are going to pick are the points which are right at the grid lines on your graph. The reason is that these points represent the exact values, which I'm going to show you in the example. Having the equation for the slope, rise over run, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, then we can substitute those 2 points, the x and y values, and find the slope of the line. When the slope is found, then we use y equal mx plus b, and again we are going to substitute one additional point on the line, or either one of those 2 points that we picked previously, back in the equation and solve for b. So the solution is exactly the same as table of values. The only thing is that now you have to pick the points from the graph, which is going to be the points which are at the intersection of the grid lines. Now we are doing one example to find the equation of the line using the graph. In this graph, which is on the right, we have a line, and we are supposed to find the equation of the line. First, as I said before, we have to find 2 points which are at the intersection of the grid line. For instance, one of these points is the point which is shown here. For instance, this point is at the intersection of the grid lines. This is at the intersection of the grid lines. This is at the intersection of the grid lines. This is at the intersection of the grid lines. And also this is at the intersection of the grid lines, meaning the line which is vertical and the line which is horizontal. But I am not going to pick this point which is not exact value for y, or this point which is not exact value for y. So that's what I mean by finding the ones which are at the intersection of the grid line. So for time being, let's assume I will pick this point which is shown here and another point which is shown, let's say, here. If I call this one point 1 and this one point 2, then I can say that point 1 has the coordinate given by, as you can say, is negative 2 and 3. Point 2 has the coordinate of 0 and 2. Now, it is obvious from these two that x1 is equal to negative 2, y1 is equal to 3, x2 is equal to 0, and y2 is equal to 2. So I'm going to use the formula m is equal to y2, 2, minus y1 minus 3, divided by x2, which is 0, minus x1, which is minus 2. This gives me 2 minus 3 is negative 1, and 0 minus minus is positive 2. So this tells us that the slope is negative 1 over 2. And remember, since the slope is negative, the line has to fall, and as you can see, when I go from left to right, the line is falling. So that is okay with the sign of the slope. This means that the equation of the line now becomes y is equal to negative 1 over 2 x plus b. Now we have to find the y-intercept. Now we take one of these points or any other point that we want on the line. We are not going to try to find another point, so we're going to take point 1 or point 2. Let's assume we pick point 2. So point 2, the coordinate is given here, which is 2 and 0, 0 and 2. So I'm going to substitute x0 and y equal to 2 in this equation and then evaluate b. So from here I get y is 2 is negative 1 over 2 times 0 plus b. Negative 1 over 2 times 0 is going to give me 0, so I get b is equal to 2, which is the y-intercept. So this means that the equation of the line becomes y is equal to negative 1 over 2x plus b plus 2. Now, if you have noticed, the y-intercept is already given here from the graph, which is 2, which is what we got here too. So everything seems to be okay.